So, I recently found out that Made in Abyss is trending on Twitter, and it's for very stupid reasons, as you can imagine. Basically, a K-pop idol said that they like Made in Abyss, and people are mad about that because, I guess because Made in Abyss has a lot of weird and uncomfortable scenes within it. And it deals with a lot of weird and uncomfortable subject matter. Um, a lot of people have been arguing that because of this, it is unethical to enjoy the show Made in Abyss, which is insane to me. And the reason that it's insane to me is, I mean, I would hope part of that's obvious, but the thing is there's so much fiction. There's so much fiction. There's so much weird, bad, unethical shit that happens in so much goddamn fiction, all the time, all the time. This is not like just because these just because some of the subject matter of this particular show is like weirder or more taboo doesn't make watching the show more unethical somehow. Like, okay, here's something that's weird to me. Doesn't I'll fully admit I haven't watched all of Game of Thrones, but I've heard that there's a lot of fucking weird shit in Game of Thrones too. But I never see people get like all like bent out of shape on like whether or not it's ethical to watch Game of Thrones. This is like it feels like this is a thing that I see only ever when it comes to anime. And there's a small degree to which I can kind of get it. Like there's people who will argue like, oh well, some of what they have in Made in Abyss is like it's just weird and off-putting for no reason, and um it doesn't actually serve like what the show is trying to do really. It's just there. Which I don't agree with that, to be honest. Um, I think I'll fully admit I probably would agree with that if we're talking about the manga. Like I can definitely see a lot of people being off-put by the manga. I think somewhat unnecessarily because of things in the manga that don't need to be there. I'm not gonna lie about that, but again, this doesn't mean it's unethical to like read the manga. It just means the manga is going to be off-putting to a lot of people. The manga is not going to I don't know. It's not going to convince people to do bad things. Um, it's literally the video games cause violence argument all over again. Or I think that's what it is. I'm not even entirely sure if people are worried that it's going to cause people to do violent things, or I'm not even really sure what the worry is exactly, but because all I'm seeing on Twitter is just this vague, you watch Made in Abyss? That's fucking weird. Like it's just this vague gesturing towards, it's weird, and it's so fucking stupid. It's so dumb. Um, uh, yeah. So, and the thing is this is something that drives me crazy on Twitter because I notice this kind of thing on Twitter a lot. I noticed this, I guess, a little bit in other places too, but God, it's like in other places on the internet, it feels, relatively tame or sane, but on Twitter, it feels like this is a tendency that people have that just gets amplified by 1,000 on that website for whatever reason. Um, is what I would call it's it's what I would call a competition of moral outrage. So you have all of these people on Twitter, and it feels like they're all in like this weird competition to try to make themselves seem like they're a better person or like above other people in some way, and in like on like a moral sense. Like, I'm a good person because I think thing X is bad. Um, and then it's like another person will show up and it's like, oh yeah, well I think even thing Y that you think is okay is bad. And it's like this sort of weird trend just continues until people try to like shit talk and condemn as many things as possible, to the point where the actual explanations or reasons why they are condemning certain things just get vaguer and vaguer and vaguer and make less and less and less sense. And again, there's a degree to where I can kind of understand it, like where this kind of thing starts. Um, you know, there there probably are genuine like bad there probably is genuine bad shit that should be called out sometimes, but man, sometimes I really feel like on Twitter that just needs to stop happening, because it feels like every time it happens on Twitter it has to get like amplified and twisted into some weird fucking thing where you're morally condemning stuff that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. I'm so bad about this. I had to get it off my chest. I don't even know if there's that much of a point to this video other than me just getting this shit off my chest. Okay? But I mean, people are comparing Made in Abyss to actual, like, because Made in Abyss is a show where a lot of very dark, very bad things happen to child characters. Because that is a thing in Made in Abyss, a lot of people are comparing Made in Abyss to actual forms of child abuse. I don't know if I can or should get specific about that on YouTube, but I'm sure people, understand what I'm saying here. Like, on some level, aren't you kind of like under, or how do I say this? Making it seem like a less serious problem when you say that like liking this random fictional show is like equivalent to these other genuinely terrible things that people could do. Like it feels like in your if you're one of these people who gets outraged about these kinds of things, it feels like you're making actual problems in the real world seem more trivialized. Like, even if that's not your goal, I'm sure that's not these people's goal. But I think it's a very unfortunate side effect of what they're doing, and it's infuriating that people won't stop to think about that. I just find this so ridiculous. I find it like if anyone has any disagreements with me, then fine. Please leave them in the comments because honestly, I want to understand. I can't understand shit like this. I can't. I actually can't. But please, if you do understand it, and if you think I'm wrong, I'm actually begging you to leave a comment because I want to understand what this issue is, okay? I want to understand what people's problem is, and I want to understand why it's so selective. I want to understand, like, why Made in Abyss but not GTA? Why, um, I've seen some, not as much, but I've seen some outrage about, like, My Dress Up Darling, for example. Why My Dress Up Darling and not, um, like, the movie American Beauty. Why not that movie? That movie's got some weird shit in it, but a lot of people are like, yeah, that's a really good fucking movie. And I agree. I think that's a great fucking movie. Um, it's a great movie that has some weird, uncomfortable shit in it. Um, uh, I don't know. Again, if people don't like this media, that is fine. If people are made really uncomfortable by this media, yeah, I understandable. Sometimes I can be too. Heck, although I would even say, ironically, in Made in Abyss, I think at least with some of the stuff in it, that is like a large part of the point. You're supposed to feel uncomfortable with it. That's like a large part of the point. I would argue, but anyways, at the end of the day, fiction. I know I made a video on my main channel not long ago where I argued against the idea that fiction like doesn't affect reality, and I do stand by my arguments that I made in that video, and I don't want anyone to confuse what I'm saying now with contradicting that, because I don't think it does. I think fiction affects reality, but I think I said many times in that video that that doesn't mean that I think it means we need to be mindful about what what we're getting out of media and why, and we need to, you know, we need to have a good media literacy and understanding. But this is not. Uh, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. This is unscripted. Yeah, what I guess what I'm trying to say is media can affect the way you think, and you should be aware of that. But this concept shouldn't be taken to this absurd level of consuming media that is fictional is immoral because it's, I mean, as far as I can tell, people are upset because it's weird. Um, it's just such a ridiculous extreme, and I feel like if we keep going this direction, like people are going to be advocating for like Game of Thrones DVDs to be like, maybe it will eventually reach the point where people are criticizing more than just anime, and people are going to be advocating for like Game of Thrones DVDs to be like banned from stores or streaming services, or like any movies that try to tackle like weird subjects. And I think, you know, if your concern is about people who like people who have suffered genuine issues, I feel like banning darker media that looks at those issues, if you advocate for like banning this type of media, I think you're doing like a disservice. Um, if you want to advocate for like more trigger warnings on things like that, I suppose that's pretty fair. Like, I remember Goblin Slayer on Crunchyroll, when that had a lot of dark shit in it. A lot of people got pretty upset, and I think Crunchyroll's response was not to get rid of Goblin Slayer, but to, I think they put some kind of warning on it, um, so that audiences would be more aware of what they're getting into. And I think that's fine. That's probably a good thing. But I think you're doing a disservice if you're trying to take certain things and say we can't explore this in fiction at all. We're just gonna wipe this under the rug. Um, Anything that exists that makes us uncomfortable, we're just gonna sweep this under the rug and we're gonna pretend it doesn't exist because it makes us uncomfortable. I think you're doing a disservice to people who have gone through um, like seriously bad shit if you're going to go that far with it. I don't know if everyone wants to go that far with it, but it feels like a lot of people do. And you can't just sweep this kind of shit out of the way and just be like, nope, we're just not gonna deal with that because it's too controversial. Like, I don't like this. I think this is anti-art. I think this is extremely restrictive. Like, people don't want to watch anything that will like challenge them or make them uncomfortable when on some level on some level, I think part of the point of something like Made in Abyss is to some extent like the whole reason the characters are in the situation that they're in is largely because the adults around them live in this town that is basically just a cult that worships this abyss, and they care about that more than they care about children, and that's why so many terrible things happen to the characters in that show. I think that the show is to at least some extent pointing out like how like adults can like you know harm children in this way, and cause them to develop this like weird, like these characters are all going into this abyss, which is horrifically dangerous. And one consistent thing you see in the show is they all kind of ended up there, maybe with the exception of Reg. They all kind of ended up there because adults sort of manipulated them into thinking that this is the most, like, this is something they should have to do with their life. Obviously, there's a lot of other reasons in the show, too, but I think that's one way that you can look at it. I don't know. This video was unscripted. Some of it's probably pretty rambly, so I'm sorry about that. If you have disagreements, then leave them in the comments. I would love the opportunity to actually probably further clarify some of what I'm saying here, because I do admit this video was probably pretty rambly, and I would like to I would like to further clarify this, and like what I'm trying to get at here, probably in a scripted video in the future, but that's probably way down the line because I have like a backlog of ideas that I'm so far behind in making. I still haven't gotten that Devilman video out. It's really close. The Devilman video is coming. It's so close to being finished. Oh my god. But it's just I realized that I made a few editing mistakes. So now I got to re-edit a couple things, and then I left in music that I realized like, uh-oh, this is actually um, gonna have copyright issues with it, so I need to change the music. Um, so it's just it's a bit of a it's a bit of a mess, but it's close to done. I'm not gonna say when it'll be out because I don't trust myself to say that, but it will probably be soon, is what I'm willing to say about that. But yeah, anyways, yeah, I'm finally gonna end it. I'm finally gonna end this video. I'm sorry that I rambled for so long. Let me know what you think in the comments. I want to know what people's opinion on this is. If if you do disagree with me, but you are willing to be like reasonable and like to have an actual discussion as to like why you disagree with me, I honestly appreciate that, and I would love to hear your thoughts. But that's all I got for this video. So I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.